Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Paramjeet Kaur from Khalsa College for Women Ludhiana. Today we are going to discuss about the module Organizational Goals 3 Managerial Theories of Firm 2 under the paper Managerial Economics. After completing this module, the students will be able to know and understand Williamson's managerial theory, know and understand Baumol's managerial theory of sales maximization, know and understand Kafoglis' managerial theory of output maximization, understand the differences between various managerial theories. The theories emerged in the field of economics over time slowly went away from the assumption of profit maximization. Managerial theories visualized that the firms do not only aim at maximizing the profits, rather, there are certain other considerations which the firm want to maximize. These managerial theories and models considered that the business firms are large in size and ownership is separated from the management. People who are the shareholders of organization and take risks. The managers are the people who are hired to manage the affairs of the organization. Besides Maris, many other economists suggested various managerial theories which focused on the organizational goals other than profit maximization. Williamson stressed on the utility maximization goal, while Baumol focused on sales or revenue maximization for the managers. Economist O.E. Williamson, the propounder of Williamson's utility maximization theory, which is also known as managerial discretion theory. Williamson's managerial theory of firm. This theory is popularly known as Williamson's utility maximization theory or managerial discretion theory. He also stood against the notion of profit maximization as organizational goals, and he favored the goal of utility maximization. This model of maximizing utility can be applied in the corporate form of business organization where there is divorce between ownership and management. In the modern times, organizations operate at large scales, and the people who manage the organizations are not the owners of the organization. The shareholders aim at maximizing the returns on their investments, while the managers aim at some considerations which enhance their utility function other than profit maximization. Thus, shareholders survive with the objective of profit maximization, while the managers are concerned not only with their own profits but also with the size of the organizational staff, amount of expenditure required for them, taxes to be paid to the government, and many other considerations. Williamson added a new dimension of utility maximization in previously propounded managerial theories. Managerial utility function. The managers aim to maximize their utility function, which is further dependent upon many factors, which are staff, its expenditure, and many other factors. They derive utility from a wide range of variables such as monetary emoluments, span of control, management slack, discretionary investments. Monetary emoluments. It states that utility depends upon the most amount of salary. Span of control. There is positive correlation between the number of staff controlled and the salary received by the manager. The next force is management slack. the expenditure done in the organization which were not necessary for the smooth flow of organizational working. Discretionary investment. It deals with the limit of discretion that a manager can exercise for organizational investments. The model of managerial utility maximization. Williamson's model suggested that the managerial utility depends upon three main variables. Managerial utility is a function of S, that is expenditure on staff and emoluments, M, that is managerial slack, and D, that is discretionary investment. It is worth mentioning that the managerial utility maximization model proposed by Williamson merged two variables into a single factor, that is staff expenditure. These two variables were salary and other monetary compensation received by the manager and the number of staff under the control of a manager. Assumptions of Williamson's utility maximization model. Williamson has based his utility maximization model on these assumptions. The first one is the three variables on which the model is based, that is expenditure on staff including salaries of management team, management slack, and discretionary investment yield the positive utility, which means S is greater than or equal to 0, M is greater than or equal to 0, and D is also greater than and equal to 0. The second assumption is law of diminishing marginal utility applies. It means when any additions are made in these three variables, the utility increments for the manager will go on decreasing. The third assumption is Williamson regarded the price as a function of three variables, which were output, expenditure on staff, and state of environment, which he named as demand shift parameter. Therefore, price is a function of X, S, and E, which were output, expenditure on staff, and state of environment. The fourth assumption is there is negatively sloping demand function, that is dP upon dx is less than 0. The next assumption is staff expenditure facilitates more demand and increase in demand shift parameter increases the demand. Assumption of Maris model. Decision variables to be positive. Law of diminishing marginal utility applies. Demand shift parameter. Positive relation of demand and demand shift parameter. Positive relation of demand and staff expenditure. And negatively sloping demand. Maris has also described some concepts of profits. To formalize the managerial utility maximization model, Williamson discussed 4 different concepts of profits in the model, which were actual profits, minimum required profits, reported profits, and discretionary profits. In the figure, R stands for sales revenue, C stands for production cost, S stands for staff expenditure, and MS stands for management slack. This is the diagrammatic presentation of Williamson's model. The diagrammatic presentation of the model has been depicted in two-dimensional view of the model. For making the explanation simple, only two dimensions have been considered, assuming that manager's utility, that is MU, is a function of S and D, which are staff expenditure and discretionary investments. In the diagram, discretionary profits DP are shown and measured along the vertical axis, while staff expenditures S on the horizontal axis. The combinations of discretionary investments and staff expenditure available to the manager are being depicted through FC, that is, feasibility curve. The curve is also known as profit staff curve. The diagram shows two indifference curves, U, U1 and U, U2. Both curves of the manager show the combination of discretionary investments and staff expenditure. The feasibility curve begins from F and it moves upwards. From point F upwards, both profits and staff expenditures increase till point P is reached. P is the profit maximization point for the organization. SP is the maximum profit level when OS, staff expenditures, are incurred. The organization reaches at the equilibrium point M, where a manager's highest possible utility function UU2 touches feasibility curve FC. At this point, the manager's utility reaches the maximum point. The discretionary profits OD is equal to S1M are less than profit maximization profits SP. But the staff emoluments OS are maximized. Williamson has further discussed the factors like taxes, changes in business conditions, etc. can affect the feasibility curve, due to which it can shift the optimum tangency point, like M in the figure. Similarly, factors like changes in staff, emoluments, profits of stockholders, etc. by changing the shape of utility function, which may shift the optimum position. Evaluation of Williamson's model. The utility maximization model provided a realistic view as it was based on many evidences, which proved that the model was empirically sound at the times it was proposed. The model offered many practical advantages over the previously discussed models. Baumol's model of sale maximization was based on a single variable, that is, sales. But Williamson considered other variables as well. In the model, the output was higher, while the prices and profits were lower than the profit maximization model. Besides all these positive points, the model suffered from various weaknesses. Williamson has not given any clarification regarding how the feasibility curve has been derived. He failed to point out the constraint in the profit-staff relation as depicted by the shape of feasibility curve. The model combined together staff and managers' emoluments in the utility curve. The utility function seems to be vague and ambiguous due to mingling of non-pecuniary and pecuniary benefits of the manager. These problems emerge due to the two-dimensional presentation of the model. Presentation of the model through three-dimensional view may solve the problem. The model does not deal with oligopolistic interdependence and of oligopolistic rivalry. Evaluation of Williamson's model. It ignores the clarification on how the feasibility curve has been derived, vague and ambiguous utility function, two-dimensional presentation of the model. It does not deal with oligopolistic interdependence and oligopolistic rivalry. Baumol's sale or revenue maximization theory. Another theory took sales maximization as organizational goal. Baumol propounded this theory based on his own experience of American oligopoly firms. The firms go after sale maximization objective in the long run. Sales or revenue maximization rather than profit maximization is the actual goal of firms. Revenue maximization may be a goal for short run with profit maximization goal in the long run. But the sales maximization is the long run as well as short run goals of the firms. Why sales maximization? Baumol thought of sale maximization as maximization of sales revenue should be the sole goal of the firms because the revenue is the only factor for the organizations on which the salaries and perks of managers depend. The status of the organizations is always measured in terms of the sales revenues they generate, not the profits they earn. The future prospects of the firms in modern times are seen through its sales figures. The image and reputation of firm in the marketplace depends largely upon its sales level. The investors look at the sales figures of the organization. The funds can be easily borrowed by maximum sales generating firms. Assumptions of Baumol's model. Baumol has based his model on the following assumptions. The basic aim of the organization in long run is to maximize the total sales revenue with a minimum profit constraint. The firm sets a minimum constraint of profit which is determined according to competition and market value of firm's shares. The market form existing in the market is oligopoly. The cost and revenue curves are normal. The demand curve is downwards sloping and the cost curves are U-shaped. The theory is based upon single period time horizon of the organization. Explanation of Baumol's model. According to Baumol, sales maximization refers to maximization of total revenue in terms of money sales. Sales can be enhanced up to the level of profit maximization where marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue. If sales are further increased beyond this point, such sales may increase at the expense of profits. In real-life situations, oligopoly firms may want to increase the sales even at the expense of current increased profits by maintaining minimum profits. Minimum profits as per Baumol are equal to profits which are less than the maximum profits. These profits depend upon the requirements of organization. These profits are required to have retained earnings, pay dividends to shareholders, meet financial requirements, and to raise new capital from market. Diagrammatic presentation of the model. This is how Baumol has diagrammatically presented his model. TC represents the total cost curve, TP is the total profit curve, MP is the minimum profit or profit constraint, and TR is the total revenue curve. The profit is maximum at OQ level of output at point B of total profit curve. But the firm wants to maximize sales, not profits. Output point at which sales are maximized is OK. At this point, total revenue is KL, which is maximum at point L of TR curve. Therefore, sales maximization output is OK, while profit maximization output is OQ. But here, the profit constraint needs to be considered. The profit has to take the level where minimum profits are covered. Thus, the level of OK output will not provide maximum sales. OD level of output is the optimal point, where minimum profits DC are consistent with total revenue DE. Therefore, profit maximization output is smaller than sales maximization output, while the price is higher than sales maximization. A sales revenue maximization firm will produce at a higher level of output by keeping low prices and will make investments, for example, on advertisements, that demand of the product gets increased. Evaluation of Baumol's model. The Baumol model has been evaluated on the basis of following points. No consideration of the fact of interdependence of the prices of oligopolistic firms. The model ignores the impact of unforeseen rivalry competition that a firm may have to face. There is no discussion on any sort of relationship between firm and industry. There is no talk about industry equilibrium. Rosenberg criticized that firms would find great difficulty in specifying the relevant minimum profit constraint. According to Shepard, under oligopoly market condition, there are kinked demand curves. When the kink stays for a long period, total revenues and profits will be maximum at the same output level. Williamson has proved that in case of multi-products, sales maximization will fetch different results than profit maximization. But Baumol argued that the results will be same. Weaknesses of Baumol's model. It ignores the interdependence of prices, ignores the impact of unforeseen rivalry competition. There is no talk about industry equilibrium. The kink demand curve may stay for a long time period, and it is inapplicable for multi-product organizations. Kafoglis output maximization. Another managerial theory was suggested by Milton Kafoglis, which preferred output maximization over profit and revenue maximization. Kafoglis supported that in the marketplace, the performance of a firm is measured in terms of physical output, while the revenue earned is kept at the secondary place. He further explained that the firms would go after the objective of output maximization, having a minimum level of profits in hand. The firm will invest the money on increasing output rather than advertisements and sales promotion. Kafoglis output maximization. Kafoglis was an advocate of output maximization, as the critics raised the question whether a firm can survive with output maximization in long run without thinking of sales aspect. Such organizations may not be able to grow and survive in long run. In case of multi-product firms, the output of different firms can be added. Here, sales maximization theory may solve the purpose. So students, let's summarize what we have learned in this module. The managers cannot altogether ignore the profits, as the survival of business depends upon the amount of profits it generates. But there are certain other considerations which have been stressed by various theorists. O.E. Williamson supported the hypothesis of utility maximization, in which he explained that managers aim at maximizing their utility function, and their utility function depends upon staff, its expenditure, span of control, management slack, and discretionary investment. Baumol emphasized on sales maximization. He suggested that modern organizations stress on maximizing the volume of sales instead of profits. He explained that the goodwill and reputation of the firm largely depends upon the level of sales a firm is able to achieve. Certain percentage of profits is needed to satisfy the shareholders through dividend, to make investments, to recover costs, and to grow further. Thus, the managers try to maintain a predetermined level of profits at the maximized point of sales. Kafoglis stressed on output maximization as a firm's goal rather than profit maximization. Some economists suggested that all of these objectives are complementary rather than contradictory to each other. Thank you.